we start?
It really is.
Can we start on the property tax rate this afternoon?
Sure.
$23.7 million. We had a tax decrease this morning. We're already hearing from Drew Farrell. He doesn't want to really give it back to the.
It's a very small amount of money, less than $1 a month for the average house. And the real question council needs to ask themselves is, will doing something useful with that money now provide council the ability to have a lower tax rate next year, the new council, to have a lower tax rate next year? For example, one of the things that we do need to do is we need to find the money to cover off the 1.5% rebate to get us to zero this year in the next budget. We also have some debt servicing, particularly around the green line, that does need to be covered off. So council is going to have a discussion over whether they want to do that now or abide by council's policy that I proposed to them last year, which is that times are tough, and even $1 a month might make a difference to people. So I expect council will have a vigorous debate about that this afternoon.
How does it look though last year when you're criticizing the province for boosting the rates a couple of percent, and here's an opportunity that they've given you that you can reduce?
Yeah, I think the province would really have to answer that question better than I could. But I understand that it's just a formula. They didn't really make a decision to do it one way or the other, and this is how the formula came out this year. And last year, council did not shield the province from that. And this year, it's a very different kind of question. But again, we're talking about very small amounts of money in the scheme of the budget.
Do you have a preference in terms of if you were made a choice, spend it on something?
Well, I'm not particularly keen on taking it unless we've got a good idea. The policy that I put forward to council back in 2011 was that we use it for capital projects that the province should be paying for anyway, or for debt reduction. And putting a little more money towards financing on the green line would make a ton of sense, I think. Or using it to offset the tax rebate this year, next year would also make sense. But again, it's a relatively small amount of money. It's not going to make a huge difference one way or the other, and I'm not particularly inclined at this point to take it. But I'm willing to have the discussion.
What's your take on how Municipal Government Act consultations are going between the province and municipalities?
I don't know that they've made their announcement yet. They're supposed to be releasing a new set of amendments today. I haven't seen them yet because I've been in council, but I have to say the consultations went very well. We didn't agree on everything. There's one particular item around the use of the provincial ombudsman, which is just not right for Calgary at all. But by and large, the consultations went quite well, and if the amendments are what I believe they will be, I think we're generally happy with the package.
And one of the amendments deals with new requirements for cities to consult with First Nations on development. What do you think that will mean?
There's been a lot of jurisprudence on this, a lot in the courts around the importance of engagement with First Nations communities. I believe that the city is already compliant with all of that. We've really worked hard on doing it, but this is an area where a lot of lawyers will continue to have a lot of discussions.
What would you like to see come out of the rest of the consultation?
Well, there are two things that are going on. One is a package of amendments on the Municipal Government Act. There are two really important things in this series of amendments. The first is changing the scope and structure of off-site levies. That's hundreds of millions of dollars to get right to help growth pay for itself. The second is that for the first time, we actually have some legislative authority on mandatory inclusionary zoning for affordable housing. That's a really big deal, and cities that have been able to really make a dent in the need for affordable housing have required that tool. So I'm really excited about those two things in particular. And you'll be hearing an announcement later this spring, I hope, of the city charters, which will continue our discussion on many issues with the provincial government.
You pulled an item, the electronic almost system, but not really. Why were you so against?
I'm a techie guy. I like tech as much as anyone, and I was interested to learn that you can now use Apple Pay in the ticket vending machines at train stations. The challenge with the mobile pay system is it's very expensive. And I always push transit to think hard with the limited dollars they have. How do we spend the money to improve the passenger experience and to bring in more riders? And the challenge that I really had with the mobile fare system, it's cool, right? But it also is very expensive. It'll increase our operating budget by about 1.5%. That's actually a lot of money. And I thought that the benefit for that was quite limited. Now, to be fair, Transit has done a ton of research on this. This was the most cost-effective solution they identified. We just ended up in a different place.
Any details on the company Allure to San Francisco?
Not yet, soon.
Any other companies? Or just the one?
We had, it was a really interesting trip because I was speaking to companies across the continuum. So in some places, this is the first they'd ever heard of Calgary, and we were really there to plant a seed. For a bunch of them, there was a very specific problem that they've got right now around immigration and visas in the U.S., and it's a problem we can solve today. And for some of them, they were so far along the continuum, they were ready to move tomorrow, or ready to, I shouldn't say move, but ready to invest tomorrow. And so I was really excited that we were able to go across that. So we'll have an announcement and a ribbon cutting on one very, very soon. And there's a couple of other pretty big fish that, maybe there's not a 50% possibility they'll come, it might be a 20% possibility. But if they do come, it would be thousands and thousands of jobs. So these are things that are really worthwhile to invest in.
So will you be
scale
going
of it.
back?
I may have to go back one more time in June to follow up on a couple of the meetings that we had in April, but it all depends on how the conversations go.
Are you able to share the scale of the ribbon cutting status with the size company?
I will say that it is a well-known name in the tech industry, and the fact that this would be their first foray in Canada, I think will have ripple effects far beyond their own investment.